So we do have people on.
And you're
Let's
live.
get let's get started here. Ampetu washte chichi yapi, midaki yapi. I hope everybody's having a good day. Welcome to Racing Magpie's Winter Camp series. Little about my name is Tally. I'm the facilitator for this year's racing or for the Winter Camp program. A little bit about Racing Magpie's Winter Camp program. It's about reimagining the Lakota Winter Camp model of problem solving and community building in today's world, by examining the deeper reasons why Lakota people do the things that they do and why they interact with the universe around them. As plants and trees focus on their energy on building strength and growing from the roots during winter, our community will join and strengthen and grow together each year through sharing and learning. And there's going to be other shows too. There's one on Saturday with Joelle Follows the Road, who is a porcupine quill artist. And then we have Michael Patton, who does Lakota Art Studio. He'll be in on Tuesday, the 28th. So keep a lookout for that. Let me introduce the artist, Cecily, here. She has a couple small businesses that she runs. She's passionate about helping people activate their energy and transform their futures. She also takes pride in work at regional and local levels, serving her native communities, rural or urban settings. And it's either through coaching, consulting, facilitating. She brings both pragmatic and playful energy to space in order to make sure her clients reach their goals and have a lot of fun along the way. When she isn't coaching, she hosts events in her 1904 Victorian home. That's awesome. And then she can also find her spending time with her little girl and her partner, cooking, baking, dancing. She has an art business, Rosie Mateo, and then is it Cecily Rose LLC? Yep. And then she does jewelry, home decor business. She also is penning her first two books in early development stages for her native travel show. So welcome, Cecily. She is an up and coming artist too. She's an emerging artist. She paints parfleche bags. So the title that I originally was searching for a title for her show, right? There was a typo, and I should have been better and more diligent about proofreading it, but wiconi wowaypike heca wicozani. So when you translate that into English, it means an artistic life is a healthy life. And I feel like you just embody that from the time you were young, and even into now. I just see your art evolving, and it's pretty cool to be a witness to that. And then I see you expanding with your life coaching and things like that. Someday I will take advantage of opportunities you throw my way. I just overbook myself all the time, and I need taking cues from the younger generation and up and coming artists. I do, part of us as artists is to create every day. Sometimes I think we lose track of that when we're in our daily lives. And I have my job, and I do work with artists in my regular job too. But for me, I need that creativity and I need that art. So it's just awesome to see how you've totally encompassed it into your life. So with that, welcome, Cecily Rose, and let's just take us on your journey through your artistic lifestyle.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful welcome. I really appreciate it. Yeah, as Tally said, my name is Cecily Rose. I am a coach, I'm an artist, and I've taken the full leap this year into working for myself, being fully self-employed, in one capacity through my coaching company and through the parfleche work that you were talking about. And in relation to that work, kind of the origin story, I guess, if you will, on Christmas Day of 2018, I found out I was pregnant. And so that moment, so many things changed, right? But as I was thinking through all of the ways I wanted to kind of create the space, both, literally and figuratively, for this human that I was going to bring into the world, I thought about how distant the arts practice that I had in different forms was from my current life. And so I had Mike Marshall pop into my head because of his work with Parfleche. And it was an art form that I had never worked in before. And I was so intrigued by it and so moved by the times I'd been able to either partake in a workshop or a class with him. And knowing that I was going to be a mother was kind of the push that I needed to face my fears and ask if I could, if he would mentor me. And I noticed, I previously worked at First People's Fund, and during my time there, I noticed how many people struggled to take even say they were an artist, or even say that they worked with other mediums, even if they didn't identify with the word artist, like, oh, I'm a quilt worker, oh, I'm a singer. It was really hard for people to do that. And I understood why. I felt really alone in that. And then when I was working there, seeing so many other people who I considered absolutely just like their applications would come in and it was just radiant, right? Just incredible work. And so in that kind of time while I was, getting ready to become a mother and thinking about what I really wanted my life to look like and what I wanted to model, I wanted art to be a consistent part of her life. And I wanted it to be really present because, traditionally that separation between art and life was not so distinct and siloed. Art wasn't something that was just put somewhere to be looked at. And so I thought, I want to pull that in now. If I'm going to do it, I should start now. And that's when I really dove in, had my baby, and then the pandemic hit, right? So my daughter was born in at the end of 2019, and here we are in a pandemic, and Mike was so generous, like messaging me to say, are you creating today? Sending pictures, try this, do this, and just constantly staying on me about creating. And so I've appreciated that support, feedback, and honestly, like he sent me that GIF one time of like, so he definitely stays on me in that capacity.
So when you were thinking about what medium, even as a beadwork, I do a lot of beadwork, and it is, I think, thinking of traditional art as a form of a medium in the art world. We're not in the mainstream. What made you think like, oh, I want to do parfleche? Because for those who don't know out there, parfleche is kind of, in ways it's an easy material to work with, but in ways it's a hard material to work with because it can warp so easily with moisture. And that's just part of when I used to do quill work, get so mad when my rawhide would just, warp and stuff like that. So out of all the I'd say cultural mediums, what made you choose parfleche?
I think, to be honest, it was something that I had, like, I wanted to learn to paint more and create more, but I'm also super, super, like, my brain gets really obsessed with functionality. Like when I was in college, I took a ceramics course and I wanted to build stuff, And I think my instructor, he's just a brilliant ceramicist, but he would get a little frustrated with me wanting to make like practical almost item, like structures out of the clay, versus he would always say like, let the clay like speak to you, and wanted these more organic things from me. And I just wanted to create something that was functional in some secret way. And so I think that really appealed to me. It was the way in which these bags were everyday use items, right? Like these were functional items, being able to carry things. There was this like added purpose, but they were so beautiful and artistic, and there was so much going in that capacity. And then, that's part of it. On the other side of it was also, I know a lot of people who do beadwork, quill work, etc. And the like level of time and like skill and mastery that goes into it is something that I was so intimidated by, right? Because it's such a prolific like set of art forms in our community. And I was just like, there's no way for me to like, I wouldn't know where to start without feeling like I was either copying someone's work or creating something that had already been done. Like I didn't, because the functionality of how it's done was lost on me, I didn't know how to be creative. But with the paint, I could be creative, right? And with cutting and putting things together, like I could figure that out. And it just seemed like, for the way that my brain works, a really powerful way to move into it. Plus, working with Mike, he's like, you can make a work bag and then you can make all of the tools and you can do this, then you can do Lakota games. And so there's so many things. He's such a prolific artist that it was like, if I could learn to get a grasp on the basics, which I still feel like I'm very much in that stage of the basics, I just felt like I would build enough trust in myself to try more things and see what else I might be able to do and share. Like, I didn't want to have someone out there teaching me beadwork or quill work with nothing to share in return. And so by having this, I feel like I have a unique skill that I can exchange with people more easily. So yeah.
Yeah, Mike's awesome. I understand that part because there's stories that go into while you're learning to create. I got to way back when I was a teenager, when I wanted to try to do quill work. I apprenticed under Christine Red Cloud, who's no longer with us, but she, to me, was my idol in traditional arts. And they tell you the history and they tell you the stories while you're making that. And in retrospect, now that I'm older and she's no longer here, it's like, oh, I wish I would have recorded that way back when, you know. And then when I was teaching, I had a really small class and I got to do that. So, and to me, you're younger than me, so to hear the and don't say you know basics. You're in the artist world. You're an emerging artist. So I don't want to hear that. Okay, you're an emerging artist. Don't use basic anymore because you're not Parfleche. And that, do you feel like when you're working with those materials, like with me, when I'm beading too, that I almost feel like I have this tie to my elders and I have this tie to our ancestors, and it kind of guides the designs and things like that. Do you think about things like that when you're working with your Parfleche or your designs?
Absolutely. I think it's like a combination of things, because in some capacities there's like this pressure, especially when it comes to traditional art forms. Like in the back of my mind, there's this pressure of like, am I doing this right? Like, is this fulfilling the continuation in a way that would, feel like it's really what my ancestors would want to see me doing and putting my energy toward, right? So there's
Yeah.
that component.
And
Then there's,
almost like, is it good enough?
yeah,
Does it
absolutely.
live up to the precedent that they sent, you know,
Yes.
that you see in museums? And like you said, it's fun to me, the outside world views, I think, our stuff as artifacts, and
Yes.
the designs and the paints and the beads and the quills as decoration, but they don't understand that there was functionality. And when you're learning that those art forms, there's the stories and the
Mhm.
language and the history behind it too, that I think the outside world doesn't understand or sometimes get either.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I, so I'm doing something a little bit, I guess, in experiment, if you will. Um, so I was on a trip. I had a trip planned to New York City in January. And I really was thinking about like the functional aspects of Parfleche and like the way in which that was a functional item used to do a number of things, right? Depending upon the style of container. And I decided I wanted to make a purse before I left. And it's downstairs. I don't know why I didn't bring it up here. I could run and grab it quick. But um the purse, was something that I wanted to make and to create and to have be something I could carry with me, like sitting on the airplane, like I have it, it's with me. Look at this thing that I have made, and look at all everything that's gone into it. And so I have a picture, actually. Let me do that. But so that's the back of the bag. You know, it's rawhide. I took a, you know, a strap off of one of my other purses. I just like I got to put this thing on here. And the colors aren't traditional, but you know, the design is more traditional. And then the front, this isn't necessarily a traditional parfleche design, but it's more of a beading design. And so I just was like pulling all of this different inspiration from different places, but I just wanted this thing to be like, we're here and like it's an active use. This is living culture. It's and inside this little bag, like I could fit, hang on, I'm gonna zoom in on there if I can. I don't know if I can, but in that little bag, I could fit a book, a wallet, you know, my chapstick, some hand lotion, some sanitizer. Like I had a bunch of stuff in this box because it was so sturdy. It didn't collapse in on itself like other purses or bags might, where you have to like kind of, it was so sturdy. All of these things had a place. And I was just like, okay, now I'm obsessed. And so I've been trying to balance continuing my education on the traditional track, like the recreation and like really, really delving into the learning. I feel like I have a lot more learning on that side. And then on this other side, it's like my where I'm getting to play, right? And like use these materials that I think a lot of people, you know, might be intimidated to use because you're using rawhide. It's like in theory an easy thing to do, but it's not.
No, rawhide's difficult to work with sometimes, but that in one way, that's how art is. It evolves, you know, and in order for our younger generations to carry it on, it has to be um they have to have some relation to it too. So that's what I really dig about you younger artists is the mix of traditional with contemporary. And then because I'm assuming, you can correct me if I'm wrong, while you're making this, it takes you back to, wow, our ancestors made these, and this is, you can see the functionality while you're creating the art.
Yes.
You know, it and you know, 50 years from now, one of your pieces could end up in, you know, for people to view because of the time, you know, when you started in the pandemic. The youth will look at it and they'll have that tie to our ancestors, and they'll have that tie to the present too, because it's relatable. It's a purse that they can use, but then the stories come and you can start teaching them of our ancestors, what the functionality was, what the designs mean, what the colors mean, and things like that. So it's pretty awesome. I just had to put my 2 cents in there. And I also want to say hi, Kushi Faith. Thank you for finally joining us. Awesome. um, yeah, do you have any more pieces that, or did you
Yeah,
sell them all?
not yet. That's the thing that's, you know, it's good not to have too much inventory because that means people are, you know, getting stuff. So there was somebody who, after I made that person shared it, someone actually ordered one, and I don't have it because I mailed it, but you know, the process of like, you know, here's the flat hide, you know, and me working with it there, just kind of showing it was on, I have color changing paint that I used with it. And so that's the kind of final product there. Um, and the back. And so this had more of a purple. And then when you shifted it, it turned into more of like a maroon color. So I have these color changing paints that I'm just obsessed with. And then right now, like this is an example of like, it was a square piece of hide. I can't see because I'm blocking my own view. But then as when it was flat, I painted it, right? And so this is more of the color changing paint. I don't know if that's really like showing the full effect of the paint, but I want to do a circular container because it's like when you see that circle edge, you can see all the colors in one view. But this is the container, right? The purse then has to be stitched together like that, and you have your box. Let me just gently put this together quick so you can kind of get a sense of what the inside looks like. But yeah, then you have the box, right? And it's this super sturdy piece. I mean, you know, this is just, it's like hard. And that's what I really like about it. Like it's a fierce
Durable.
thing. Yeah, it's durable. Don't get it wet though.
Yeah, you'll have to tell your customer, don't
Don't.
don't get it wet because then it won't be a purse anymore.
Yeah. And so I do like cover it like once it's all done, and I do little touch-ups on the paint and stuff to make sure it's good. But and I try to put a spray to help the paint stay, and then something to just help, deflect water a little bit. But ultimately, like it's still a piece of artwork, right? So you have to be gentle with the paint and everything, but I don't want that to deter people from interacting with it and using it. Part of me is like, the more wear that it gets, like that is like a badge of the use and the function too. So that's another thing, is like I started noticing one of my one from New York, I was wearing it every day and I was like walking up and down the streets and everything, and some of the paint wore, and I was like, oh no. And that one I didn't spray with anything. And then I was like, no, like that's part of it. It gets to show like the journey that it's been on with me. And anyway, that's like a whole whatever. But
So when you decided to work with Parfletch and you were apprenticing, um, the viewers who don't know what there's different kind of paints that you can use on Parfletch. First of all, what kind do you use? Do you use deer, elk?
Okay, hold on. So this one,
to me, I like elk. I think elk is the best, but that's just my preference.
So yeah, these are both deer. So I have two deer here. I do work with elk. I like earrings, elk for earrings. And then this is buffalo. And this is for a women's bag. So it's not together, but you can see the stitching will go on the side, and trade cloth and stitching will go here. And so that's kind of like, you can see, I don't know if you can tell how like thick this is, but this is hard to puncture. Like that's real.
I like buffalo a lot too, but it's not as abundant, but I think I like elk because it doesn't, once it's set, it's set.
It's set.
Yeah.
And then this this is the calf hide I got in Sioux Falls. It's real thin and lovely. What I would like to try to make out of this is I would like to make a carry-on bag, like a small carry-on that would be able to, I could zip it or something, but that it could fit underneath the seat in front of me if I were to travel, but it would be sturdy enough to hold its own, so it wouldn't be like a suitcase. That's not what I envision. It's more like almost like a computer style bag, or like a bag you could carry that would be like a square or a rectangle, is how I imagine it. But I'm getting to play with all these different hides.
I can't wait to see the finished product.
Thank you. So yeah.
So when you are stumped or you need advice, do you reach out to Mike and he kind of coaches you through it, or are you just kind of figuring it out?
Well, now that he's really, he's taught me so much in terms of like, there's little things around. Hang on one second. I'm going to grab something here that I think is useful if somebody wants to get into this. So for instance, like these little things where, so this is a puncher, it's like a leather punch, but you can use it for hide. So I have a little piece of hide here, like got hair on it. Sometimes you got to shave your hide. But like, normally if you go and try and punch it, that's one thing, right? But he would always say, use one of your scraps and put it underneath and then punch it on the other side, because it just makes the process a lot easier to do. And so I feel like he's done a lot to like everything he can think of to share what would, be useful. And one thing is like, he's been doing this for, decades now, and he is a strong guy, right? He has strong forearms, strong hands. I have arthritis, literal arthritis. Like I'm holding off on going on immunosuppressants for as long as I can. And so one thing that I do, and this fits kind of with the theme of like the healthy lifestyle was I have somebody who's younger than me and does not have arthritis, sometimes helps me with that kind of stuff, like punching the holes or cutting the hide, or things where it's like I've mapped it out and I've gotten the markings in, and then they help me with that, so that then I can save my hands for painting. Because it's like you have to, especially when you're an artist, any artist out there knows, whether you're doing beadwork, quill work, whatever, you have to protect your hands. They're the thing that helps you create. And so that's one thing that I do, is like I try to pick where I can, save my hands in that capacity. And Mike always teases me. He'll like cut something, or my auntie too. My auntie, she does this work too. She got into it with me, and he's helped both of us learn. And he'll just tease us like, oh, geez, that just cut like butter. And we'll be there like just struggling with a piece of hide, like whatever. But yeah.
And then, so part of living an artistic life and ingraining it all well, I wouldn't say well-rounded, but ingraining it into every aspect of your life kind of led you onto this other journey too. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think that I have tried really hard to, life gives you all the lessons that it's going to give you, and all the experiences that you can either, good and bad. I have the mindset of like, if I at least learn something from it, I can say, I can make my peace. Let's put it that way. And throughout the years, I've spent most of my time in nonprofit work, and I think the arts called to me so much and so deeply. But at the same time, I realized how much like of the personal work there was there. Like I mentioned at the beginning, when people had a difficult time calling themselves artists or engaging with arts work out of that, like not only is what I'm creating good enough, am I good enough? And so a lot of my personal work around that has been, one, to seek mentors and to listen deeply and to be committed to showing up for the practice. But it also led me down this path of coaching. And Jacqueline Russell, one of the founders of Native Women Lead, she started coaching some years back. And I hired her. I did 3 sessions with her. And in those 3 sessions, she literally changed my life. And so after that, seeing the like transformation that was possible, and like not only was I working with a coach, I was working with a Native woman. And she said, well, if because I was saying how much it had impacted me, and she's like, if you'd be interested in coaching, you should go through this program. I've been in relationship with this program, you should try it. And so the program she'd recommended was Coaching for Healing, Justice, and Liberation. And so I just literally in January graduated from that program. It was a 9-month program, super intensive. And it's been like the best, one of the creators of it talks about, in her mind, coaching is coming home to yourself. And for me, it's not only the coming home to myself, but it's figuring out where my home is within community, because I have a better understanding of my own inner world, my limitations, my skills, what I have to offer, my value and worthiness. And so I'm not seeking that from other people, right? Like, I think a lot of us live our lives where we're worried about our value, or we're worried about what we have to offer. And so we pull from other people to help prove that to ourselves rather than affirm what we already know. And so in the coaching capacity, that's the thing that I love most about the particular coaching program I went through, is it really trains you to see every person you interact with as fully whole, as they have all of the answers within them and within who they are. And that's not to say that, we don't need help from each other, because those things are kind of two interconnected pieces there. But I just appreciate the way that it allows people to activate their agency over the things they have control over. and to let go of the rest. Like there's so many things in this world and in this life we have no control over, and we have to hand over, right? Like we have to just be and make peace with it, and then be accountable for where we have our decision-making points and discerning what works for us and how we want to show up in the world. So yeah, I really like coaching, if you can't tell.
You know, and I think when we think about it realistically, especially what the pandemic has did to our native communities, like we've
Yes.
lost our kushis, we've lost our tuwis, and they were our life coaches. They taught us things like this, you know, and our youth have it hard. I feel so bad. Our youth do have it hard. So do you ever think that in the future, part of the training that you have and from your art form that led into what you're doing now, do you think kind of morphing that into a cultural program to help the youth and incorporating it with art too?
Allie, I got so many ideas. No,
I know it's so hard. My job I'm doing now too. I have all these ideas for native artists, and I just, but then in a way I feel like, oh, I can't do it. And I think us as native women, we're considered the strong ones, so it's hard to ask for help, you know, but then we have all these connections too.
So on
So
the on
share
that
some of your ideas.
yeah, no, on that front though, I do want to say, like, I've really been intentional about cultivating like myself, in the sense that I'm really thoughtful about, because I'm an adult, and because it's like once you get to the point of being able to kind of operate in the world on your own terms a little bit more than when you're young, I've been really, really intentional about discerning who and what and how I interact with people in my life. And I was just sharing before this event, like I've been so lucky in, like, I have a partner who shows up for me, encourages me, and understands what I do and understands who I am. But that didn't happen overnight, right? Like I wouldn't have been able to even accept the kind of like love and care of this person without all of the self-learning that I had to go through to even make space for that. And like you're saying, like the difficulty of asking for help, then even asking, receiving help. Like that's the next hurdle, right? And my dad, my dad lived with us during the pandemic and when we were in Rapid City. Um, and he's been integral to my ability to do this, because he came to help, with our daughter and lived with us, and he was going to get a job and do all these things. And then boom, pandemic. And he was home and helped raise our daughter. And it was just like, I just have so much gratitude, right, for all of the support from my family and many, many, many friends. Anyway, that's a whole other thing, but like cultivating a sense of it's okay to lean on each other, and being able to have that in the people around you. And if you can't find it, figuring out how you'll get to that point of cultivating it and identifying it, because it can be hard to identify. Anyway, I'll go on a tangent later, but some of my dreams though, originally, like right when the vaccine was first coming out, we wanted to do these parfleche healing circles, which was both, here's my hide falling over here.
That
Both,
is an awesome idea.
yeah. And so we did some, right? So it was me, Mike, and my auntie, but it was right at this time when, the vaccine was available, but then the efficacy, people weren't sure. And so it was like, I got started and then it kind of fell off. And so that's something that I've been eager to find maybe grant funds for. And I'm applying for a few things now because I want to do these healing circles where we can get people the materials, right? They don't have to be here. Like these things are, gee, this stuff's expensive. I mean, not this per se, but this plus scissors, plus paint, plus hides, plus, I mean, you name it, the list goes on to be able to get into a particular art form. And I want to be able to have like participants walk away with a puncher and a whatever. Anyway, And then in the coaching front, you know, I offer online, like I have a free event happening next Friday. It's called Daydream Hour. And so the whole thing with that is just like taking an hour out of your day to put intentional thought toward what you want for your life. And I truly believe that if more people were living their dream life, that's a gift to the world, and it would make the world collectively a better place. Um, and then I've been hosting these business ideation brunches at my house here. Super fun. The last one was supposed to last 2 hours and it lasted almost 4. But it's just the opportunity to get really like imaginative and creative. So I got to, you know, make good coffee and bake some stuff. And it was just really fun to be able to host. And my cousin Misty showed up and my friend Sarah showed up, and her niece has been helping support me just with things here and there, including punching the rawhide and stuff like that. So they were all there, and it was just such a great time to like get into some really exciting like idea generating, because they had brilliant ideas too that just like knocked my socks off. So that's the kind of stuff I'm already doing, those things, but there's so much more I'd love to do, and combining all of it together would be, you know, chef's kiss.
I really like your idea of the parfleche healing, because anytime we can incorporate our traditional arts and bring that in and create that bond between our generations and with our ancestors,
Yes.
and art is the gateway, and to
Yeah.
see and Unchi Faith said, come to Braveheart Lodge to do a parfleche healing circle. They will buy the supplies after Water Lily.
Oh, okay.
Yay!
Yes. And we've
See,
been
Coach Faith is awesome. See, when you get a
we've been
bunch of Native women together, it's like, and they ran, you know, everybody talks about the men and how they had the councils and ran, but really, it's the women who ran our communities, even in camp
yes.
life, you know. The men would go back to their women and get their advice and talk about it. And oh, that just made my heart feel good. Thank you, Kushi Faith.
Makes me so happy because we've been trying to connect for a long
And you
time.
live close
Not
to
very
her
far.
now.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you know,
Yeah.
we're right over there. So every now and again we'll be like, you know, what's going on? And I'm like, there has to be a way for us to work together. So I'm really, really, we love you. Thank you.
Yeah, we love you
Um,
too. Anytime, just let me know. I will, not winter time. Everybody said, move to Montana. It's so pretty. I moved to Montana and it's been snowing for 3 days now. And they don't even call off school or work. They're used to it.
yep.
But anytime, this goes for you too, Kushi Faith. Anytime you guys need me, like, just let me know ahead of time and I'll be down to show to share,
Mm,
with I'm my little artistic careers, and it's hard to even say myself too is kicking off, and a lot of it had to do with losing my grandmother, during the pandemic, and I put my art on the back burner for so long, and then I needed to deal with that grief because being away from my family for the 2 years that I was away, and then to come home and to finally spend time with them, and then the pandemic hits, right? And it's like, I couldn't go home because I don't want to get grandma sick. And then the only time I was going home was for funerals, and it was like, how do
mm,
I deal with this? And going back to what I was taught with my traditional arts helped me deal with that, to cope with that process of grief and kind of to start healing again. So how do you, with what would your advice be to artists or up and coming young people, and how to incorporate art into the healthy parts to make their life, to get over those hurdles, persevere.
I'm gonna try to say all this without getting emotional, but I'm really good at doing that. So, um,
It's okay, we
yeah.
can.
Well, and you know, I noticed with this work that the reason that it was the Parfleche healing circle, you know, we called it Parfleche healing, Parfleche learning. Um, but the healing piece is like it's a space of reciprocity, right? Because usually with our traditional forms, there's the act of us healing the form, reclaiming it, revitalizing. There's a lot of layers in that capacity, but it's healing us in return. There's so much healing that happens through the creation of the work. And you can't, like, I could try to describe that, but you don't know it until you're in it. And then there's, of course, the lessons in humility that only art can teach us. Of like, wow,
Yeah,
that didn't work.
right? Yeah.
But no, I think that it's a way to, in real time, in like this microcosm, have challenges, like overcome challenge, step into creativity, like be in a relationship with a piece of yourself, because every piece of art that we create, it's like a piece of ourself is in it, and it's an expression of who we are. And so it's a practice too in vulnerability, but on your own terms. And I think a lot of our youth are required to be vulnerable a lot, but not necessarily on their own terms. And so that's what I love about the artwork is, that's something that you can do. And it takes time. It's a develop, like even today I was painting with my daughter, and we were just painting on paper, and so quickly I noticed how quickly I was judging myself about just something that was supposed to be playful, right? Like, she's 3. It's not like she's looking at my artwork and being like, oh, like, that would never, whatever. And I thought, when you're already feeling so vulnerable about who you are, what your worth is, what you bring to the world, art is one of the ways to, like, I think, zero in on that immediately and start tackling it in a way that feels like you can work through it. And you can literally, I mean, like, if it's something that's not, a sacred art piece, like if you create something and you could write out, a poem of the things that you're like holding on to, and then you can burn it. You can do all of these things that help you process things. And I want to honor what you said, Tally, about grief, because I was talking with a friend, Gibran, 2 days ago. What day is it? And all these snow days, I don't know. And we were talking about grief and ritual, and like the way in which those things are so intertwined, regardless of what it is. And I think the pandemic, because all of the things that we normally would do were wiped out, right? Like, it didn't matter your community, the things, how you would normally handle something so massive as the loss of a loved one, changed completely. And so in a lot of ways, you could see the way in which art took this space up in the pandemic, right? Where people were pouring a lot of that into artwork. And I don't have like any grand point I'm trying to make, I guess, but just the fact that I really see a deep connection between the importance, I guess, of talking about grief and loss. It's such a hard thing to do, and it's so, in mainstream society, is not something that is welcomed. Like, we avoid death and conversations about death like it's never going to happen, and yet it's so inevitable, and we have a deep relationship with it. And so I see grief and art, and like, it's all these ways to transcend and time travel almost. We get to have a relationship with our ancestors through our art. And like you were saying, when you said that, I'm gonna get emotional. When you said that about like someone in the future being able to see something that I've created, it just gives me this thought of like what blessings we can put into everything we create, all those prayers for the future going into this, and hoping that, our next generations will know that, right? And it's easy to talk about generations that aren't here yet. But I'm hoping that through this work and sharing it out, any youth that would be interested in this work, it's so demanding, but it's something I would share freely and happily. So there's an invitation in that as well.
But it is demanding, but when we think of cultural arts, and we have to think our youth don't have access to the culture bearers and the knowledge keepers that we had access to, because one, because of the pandemic, and two, because our youth are living hard lives anyway, you know, they're taking their own lives. And when I think of teaching the youth, even with just through beadwork or any kind of, and use my, like, you as a connection to help teach them too, is like, they create something that they're proud of and that they can take ownership of, and two, we're creating a bond. They don't have someone here, but we are the people that are stepping in and creating that bond to our ancestors. And our gateway is through art, and to let them know, while you're creating too, you can use that to express grief, you can use it to express joy, and ingrain our core values that our ancestors taught: patience, perseverance, humility, generosity. So, that's why when I do these, that's why I'm thankful that Racing Magpie let me be the coordinator for this, because I get to talk to the youth and hear your guys' perspective. In my former jobs, I worked with elders a lot, and it's like, gee, when it's good, it's just good to hear the youth listen to you guys. You built a life around your art, and you're an example of all the positive things that we can see. When I used to work for Earl, he talked about this balance that our ancestors try so hard to tell us, that for all the good, it can't, that's setting it off balance. So you have to accept the negative. But if and we have to teach our youth that, okay, it's okay to accept this negative. You got to persevere. You will overcome it. You just have to be patient. And I think with the cultural arts, and parfleche is kind of like a dying cultural art form, and to see this resurgence, I commend you on taking the time to, one, reach out to a knowledge keeper, and two, to stick with it and learn the art form, and then create it to where it's relatable to the younger people now, that in modern times, that, yeah, that our ancestors used parfleches, but this is a functional way that you can use a parfleche today, and they still have that connection. So that's pretty cool. We got about 10 more minutes, if you want to share some more about where you're going, what you're doing right now, where you're going.
Yeah, speaking about like where I'm literally going, y'all gonna get to see a peek of my messy office here. I'm gonna grab another container, just speaking of like the functionality of things that I think is so important. I have where is it at? I have a container that's a round container that I actually keep all of my earrings in. Not all of them, but my round ones. Here it is. Okay, so this was the only room in our house that was finished when we moved in, and they have a tub. Oh my gosh, we would have got the house just for that. The rest of the house, but so here's the round container, right? And this is all
Nice.
cowhide.
Yeah.
And this is one of Mike's. He has a template for how to do this, right? And so both my auntie and I made these containers, and you can see the sinew and the stitching and all of that. And so I literally use this every day. And that's the thing that I think is exciting, is like, I don't have to buy a cheap plastic thing at Walmart. Not that I don't ever do that, but I can create something. And it has, my daughter was playing with it, so it came off. But there's a butterfly out of rawhide that I had that goes on top of it, actually. And
Oh,
so that's part of the lid,
nice.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm out of breath from one walk down my hallway, but yeah.
That's okay. It's okay.
But you could customize this in any way. You could put anything. I mean, the limit, is there is no limit. And so that's something I appreciate too. Or you could paint the outside, or you could do whatever. And Mike does a lot of, I'm gonna put this loud bag down. Mike does a lot of workshops, and I think that people get a lot of the fire for this work, and they see they can make a pair of earrings, or they see they could make there's the noisemakers, those spinning, you know, the games. I have one of
Oh,
those,
yep.
but
I,
yeah.
for, I forgot what they're called.
Mumpy, mumpy. And so like there's so many different ways to interact with this art form and so many different ways to play with it. I thought I had it here, but I don't. And so I just really want to encourage people to try it. I mean, like you were saying, it is a very at-risk art form, and it is traditionally it was a women's art form. So to Mike, he was like, I want to see more women get into this, but because cutting, punching, doing all this stuff with the hide can be so hard, it's just not something that a lot of people take on fully. Like people will learn it or they'll have it, but it's not like the, you know, they haven't, it's not their full thing, right? That's pretty rare. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then Faith was talking
Cushy
about,
Faith said that they, oh,
go ahead.
oh yeah. Cushy Faith said they make knife cases out of parfletch at Ishnanti.
That's amazing.
So is there I know, and the youth are so creative. They just need
Mhm.
a little guidance and encouragement. It's, you know, I think our youth are, it's hard for them to absorb when people care about them, when people love them, because, you know, they have tough lives and they're so used to feeling and hearing all that negativity. And then when you start creating things, helping them create things, and you just kind of see their face change and it starts glowing. It literally starts glowing. So I think, yeah. So do your art form with your parfletch and your coaching, does it intersect quite a bit in your everyday life?
You know,
Or
it's
do you make it a point
mm,
for them to intersect?
so right now I've just been getting my feet under me, if you will, in terms of, you know, I had done the parfletch work as kind of like a when I could over the duration of the pandemic, because I had 3 jobs in the pandemic. I was working from home. And so when I could get time to work on it, it was just like this window of time, right? And now it's a full component of my time. And what happened was I'd been receiving, I was in a coaching exchange with another coach who was in a program I was in, and she challenged me to write out my ideal week. Not your ideal day, but you know, your ideal week. And I was like, no one's ever asked me that before. So I mapped it out. I was like, oh, I'd do coaching on Tuesdays, and Wednesday would be nothing but art. Like I would just do art all day. I'd create all day. Thursday, I'd be coaching. And then Friday could be like a flex day where I could do that, you know. So like my brain was just rolling. And then I had that moment where I was like, I was working as a consultant. There was no consulting like on my ideal week. And it was a real like moment of, okay, I have to pause, because I was working with somebody who I love and who I admire and who is a dear, dear mentor and friend. And so to have that revelation of like, uh-oh, I might have to make a change. And luckily she understood, because she wants to see me grow. And that's something where it's like, I feel like our youth probably are in the space of, you know, they're growing and they're going to get their first jobs and they're going to interact or whatever with people who are going to be their bosses, right? And not necessarily their mentors. And those are 2 different things. And I know that now after working with someone who technically was my boss, but at the core of what our exchange was, she was my mentor. She was the person who wanted to see me succeed, whether or not it was working right alongside her or working in partnership with her on my own work. And so what I'm getting at, and this is my really, you know, long way of saying this, is that when I looked at my week and saw how prominent the coaching and the art were, I knew that I had to kind of follow this thread of seeing what kind of life I could build. And I do imagine it like, you know, strands of a braid kind of coming together in terms of I have these different components in my life, and I've made a commitment. Like I am not going to I've set my situation up right now where I am not going to overwork myself. I'm not going to sacrifice time with my family and my child in the same way that I would have maybe 5 or 10 years ago. I am really going to figure out what's most, like, what I'm really investing my time in. And so I know that the coaching and the parfletch are going to overlap in different ways, but all of it overlaps with all the different aspects of my life. And sorry, my cat's like rolling around on the thing down here. He's making all kinds of noise. I don't know what he got into catnip or something, but
I love cats.
he's a wild one.
It's always good to have animals around too. You know, you
Oh, yeah.
kids and animals. Right now, I'm still hunting for an
Yes,
apartment or a house. I'm staying with a friend, and my daughter's like, "You have to find somewhere where we can at least have a cat or a dog or both."
it's so important.
Yep, yep. Teaches. Well, we have. If anybody has any questions, you can surely. Wow, that went by quick. It's already 7:59. But I wanna thank you so much for sharing this with us tonight. And before we, to everybody out there, create. It doesn't. To me, now that I've worked in, got real heavy into my artwork, in depth and stuff, to create every day, even if it's just creative writing. Talking is an art form too. You have to learn how to tell stories and speak and things, like just create, even if it's just doodling on a little piece of paper. So before we close out, I saw this that was shared on Lakota Empowerment about how working with your hands, which kind of ties back to our ancestors and what I touched a little briefly on about. I had it on here and I lost it, but okay, right here. So it's on Lakota Empowerment, but it's a conversation between a Kushi, which means grandmother in Dakota, Unchi and Lakota, and this young girl was asking her grandmother, and she said, "Kushi, how do you deal with pain?" And the Kushi answers back, she said, "With your hands, dear Takoja. When you do it with your mind, the pain hardens even more." And she says, "With your hands, Kushi?" She said, yes. Our hands are the antennas of our soul. When you move them by sewing, cooking, painting, touching the earth, sinking them into Unchi Maka, they send signals of caring into the deepest part of you, and your spirit calms down. This way, she doesn't have to send pain anymore to show it. And the young girl says, "Are hands really that important?" And the Kushi says, "Yes, Takoja. Think of babies when they get to know the world thanks to their touch. When you look at the hands of older people, they tell more about their lives than any other part of their body. Everything that is made by hand." So the ancestor said, "It is made with the heart because it is really like this. Hands and heart are connected. Think of lovers when their hands touch, they love each other in the most sublime way." "My hands, Kushi?" she says. "How long since I used them like that?" And she said, "Make them move, my Takoja. Start creating with them, and everything in you will move. The pain will not pass away, but it will be the best masterpiece, and it won't hurt as much anymore because you have managed to encompass your essence." So I'd just like to leave our audience with that. And Pidamiapi, Madakiapi, everybody stay warm, check on our relatives, check on each other. Thank you all for showing up tonight, and thank you so much, Cecily. And hopefully we got to partner up on something creative too.
Yes.
Kushi Faith, let me know. We'll do something. I'll gladly come down there and help out. So thank you
Sounds
so much. I love
Thank you.
you. Yep.
Oh,
Oh, hold on. We got a couple comments. Oh, Jolene Tomhab, I probably murdering your name. She said, "Cecily and Tally, you are both." I didn't see it. Thank you for sharing. We're both inspiring. We're inspiring. Thank you so much, everybody, for again showing up. Remember, be good relatives to our animals, to our plant life, to our ancestors, and create, create, create. Always reach out, ask for help. We're in this community together, and we will share our knowledge. So we have another show coming up Saturday with Joelle Follows the Road, a porcupine quill artist. I'll be actually traveling down to Rapid City. I'm kind of scared about the roads, but I'll be doing it in person with her, and we will be streaming it live on Facebook too and Zoom if you guys want to tune in. It's 3 to 5 on Saturday, so she'll be showing us. She works with creates these beautiful bags with felt and porcupine quills. Ooh, it's so pretty. She's an emerging artist too, and she works with 13 Charlotte cut beads, so should be awesome. But all right, thank you again, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Safe travels.
Yep, thank
Bye.
you. See ya. Doksha.